Hey Optimancers, Chris here. The new Spelljammer book was just released and it has some amazing racial options for players. We're going to look at one of those amazing options today. So there's 6 new racial options in the book: the Astral Self, the Autonome, the GIF or GIF, the Hadozee, the Plasmoid, and the Thri-Kreen. And I am going to be doing a video to highlight each of these races. Today we're looking at the Hadozee, which I think might be the most powerful of all of the races in this book. Hi, if you like what you're seeing and you'd be interested in supporting this channel, you can do so through Patreon. There's a link to my Patreon page in the video description. Today I'd like to thank some of my top level patrons: FBKO5, Gishlife, Gakumaru, Hendry, Hoerby, Ian Johnson, Jay Gemmel, James Makla, James Sprague, James Thomas, Jeff Williams, Jadzan, John Matera, Jonathan Lexi, Joseph Robideau, Joseph Van Horn, Josh Davis, Justin Times, KJ Aurelio, Kurt G, Laverja, IGW, Marlon Rooks, Martz, Math Guy Dave, Nathaniel McCauley, and Nick Lutz. Thank you all so much for your support. Let's get started. First, let's go over the race, and then I'm going to give you my take on it. So the Hadozee were timid mammals no bigger than house cats. If a monkey and a sugar glider had a baby, that is what a Hadozee looks like to me. Essentially, the wizard who transformed them was going to enslave them and then sell them off, and then the wizard's apprentices turned on them, and the Hadozee escaped, and they have been roaming the astral sea ever since. So I'm going to go over the mechanics, then I'll give you my take on it. Like I already said, I think the Hadozee are really powerful. Alright, so their creature type is humanoid. For size, they can choose medium or small. They make that selection when the race is selected. Their speed, they have a walking speed of 30 feet and a climbing speed equal to their walking speed. And they have dexterous feet. As a bonus action, you can cause your feet to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. Then they have glide. If they are not incapacitated or wearing heavy armor, they can extend their skin membranes and glide. When they do so, they can perform the following aerial maneuvers. You can move up to 5 feet horizontally for every 1 foot you descend in the air at no movement cost to you. When you would take damage from a fall, you can use your reaction to reduce the fall's damage to 0. And finally, Hadozee Resilience. The magic that runs in their veins highlights their natural defenses. When they take damage, they can use their reaction to roll a d6, then they add their proficiency bonus to the number rolled, and they reduce the damage they take by amount equal to that total. And they can use that a number of times equal to their proficiency bonus per long rest. Alright, so let's look at these traits again. Humanoid, no big deal. Medium or small, no big deal. Walking speed 30 feet, that's standard. Climbing speed equal to your walking feet, that's a nice little extra. Now we get to dexterous feet, so this is a bonus action, and you can use your feet to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. Now, the advantage here is that if your hands are full, then you could do it with your feet. So this might, in combat, allow you to draw something you wouldn't be able to draw, or pick up something you wouldn't have been able to pick up. Now, there is some question as to exactly what you can do beyond what is specifically mentioned here, because it specifically mentions manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. Now, the question is, if I pick up a wand, well, that wand is a tiny object. Can I activate the wand using my dexterous feet? And that isn't really clear. I will say that there is another Spelljammer race that specifically says on a feature that's similar to this, that they cannot activate magic items. That wording isn't here. That would kind of imply that maybe you can. But I do think, since it's not mentioned specifically, it is something you have to check with your DM before you assume that that's what you can do. Then we get to glide. If you are not incapacitated or wearing heavy armor, you can extend your skin membranes and glide. When you do so, you can perform the following aerial maneuvers. Here is where I think the Hadozee has become the most powerful race in this book. And it's all down to this first bullet point. You can move 5 feet horizontally for every 1 foot you descend in the air at no movement cost to you. That's the important part. At no movement cost to you. If I fly 5 feet, that costs me 5 feet of movement. But they're saying that if I descend 1 foot and then glide 5 feet, that costs no movement. And that I don't think they've maybe considered as carefully as they should have. So here are the rules for jumping, specifically the high jump. It says, when you make a high jump, you leap into the air a number of feet equal to 3 plus your strength modifier, minimum of 0 feet. And that's only if you move at least 10 feet on foot immediately before the jump. When you make a standing high jump, and this is the one we're looking at, when you make a standing high jump, you can only jump half that distance. Either way, each foot you clear on the jump costs 1 foot of movement. Let's say, for example, we had a Hadozee character with an 8 strength. So 3 plus our strength modifier would be 2 because we have a -1 strength modifier. So on a running high jump, we could get 2 feet in the air. On a standing high jump, we have a maximum of 1 foot. In other words, we don't need to move. We can jump 1 foot in the air, cost us 1 foot of movement. So here is our Hadozee character. What do they do on their turn? They're going to jump 1 foot in the air. Well, then what's going to happen? They're going to glide 5 feet. So they would move from here to here. And they now have used 1 foot of movement instead of 5 feet of movement. Then what can they do? They can jump again. And then they move to here. And then they have used 2 feet of movement, but they've moved 10 feet. And you can see where this is going. Because, reasonably, there is no limit on the amount of jumps you can take on your turn. So just with a standard 30-foot movement speed, just by jumping 1 foot at a time, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 1/3 of our movement. In other words, 150 feet is how far we could move on our turn with just a 30-foot movement speed. No dashing, no, movement boosts, nothing like that. Now, this entire map, from one end to the other, is 85 feet. So we could jump all the way to the other side of the map, and then we could turn around, and we could jump all the way back to here. And that is with 30 foot of movement speed, just by jumping 1 foot into the air at a time, and then gliding 5 feet. Other thing is since the glide speed isn't using movement, then I question whether it would even provoke opportunity attacks. Normally, you have to use your movement in order to provoke an opportunity attack. So then not only do we have a basic base movement speed of 150 feet, but we also can take it without provoking any opportunity attacks. So this is obviously just insane. Now, I do think it would also be insane to just assume your DM is going to be okay with this. So I would be talking with my DM when I make a Hadozee character just to make sure that this is okay, because it is just so out of the realm of anything anybody else in the game can do. Then when you would take damage from a fall, you can use your reaction to reduce the fall's damage to 0. That's good. I've been told repeatedly that one of the things that makes monks great is slow fall. Beginning at 4th level, you can use your reaction when you fall to reduce the damage you take in a fall. And then I'm told that by 14th level, you could expect to take no damage from any fall. Well, here, you're not going to take damage from any fall, again, using your reaction, except it's at level 1. It doesn't require a class feature. In fact, it doesn't even require a whole racial trait. In fact, it's even the footnote of the racial trait. Yet, I agree, it's still pretty good. Hadozee Resilience, I think, is okay, though it is simply weaker than the Goliath Stone's Endurance. Stone's Endurance, very similar thing, except they're rolling a d12 and adding their Constitution modifier instead of their proficiency bonus. Otherwise, it's the same feature. Look at it this way, you got a 5th level character, d6 plus your proficiency bonus, probably 6.5. For Goliath's Endurance, it's 6.5 on average before they add their Constitution modifier. But that is the Hadozee. Extremely powerful race. One of the most powerful races in D&D for sure. So how do we optimize a Hadozee? Well, assuming we're allowed to use the glide speed to move across the map with no effort at all, the first thing I'd say is don't focus on your movement. There's really no point in getting the Long Strider spell or enhanced movement speeds or bonus action dashing, any of those things that normally we look at in order to build the mobility of our character. Those are kind of pointless here. I'm sure we'll see them. I'm sure we'll see all kinds of builds where people just want to see just how far can they move with a Hadozee, because it's going to be much higher than any other builds that we've seen up to now. But I don't see the point. If you can move 150 feet on your turn without provoking opportunity attacks, then any movement on top of that or above that, I don't really see any value in it, at least in a practical sense. So since the mobility is already there, who can make the most use of it? And the question really should be, who isn't going to make the most use of it? Basically, if you've got a character with strong melee attacks, or a character with strong ranged attacks, or a character with strong spells, then you're going to do really well with a Hadozee. The only characters that really aren't going to do well here are characters that don't have any of those things. In other words, if you build a bad character, it's still a bad character even if you can move really fast. In my next video, I'll be talking about what I think is maybe the most interesting race in Spelljammer, the Plasmoid. Hope you'll join me for that. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.